Show me the money.
Hey, it's me. Knock, knock. So, you got my money?
Think about it. You're dealing with numbers all day long. Decimal points, high frequencies, bang, bang, bang. Digits, all very acidic, above the shoulders, mustard shit. Right? Kind of wake some people out. Right? You gotta feed the geese to keep the blood flowing. I keep the rhythm below the belt.
I want to stay in Arizona. I want my new contract. Show me the money! Jerry, you better yell! Show me the money!
Where's my money? You gonna give me my money? Where's my money, man?
Welcome back to Cap Strapped. I'm Max Dean. You can find me on Twitter at PanAmFootball. So today we are going to just be doing a nice, short, sweet Cap Strapped episode about the Danielle Hunter contract situation. I think next week I'm probably going to do Trent Williams unless I have a request otherwise. But yeah, today Danielle Hunter is pretty straightforward. Just going to talk about the edge market. I'm going to talk about where he fits in there and what he wants and what is likely to happen with him. As always, I get my contract numbers from overthecap.com and spottrack.com, so always thank you to those guys. And yeah, let's just dive right in. Leave a comment if you have any questions or if you have any requests. And throw me a like and subscribe if you like the kind of content we do here. We try to do contract and salary cap stuff every single week. And if you're just finding the channel, we will be doing the single player contracts pretty much through the draft weekly. And then once the draft is over, we may have a couple of extensions come through the works. And either way, what we're going to do then is we're going to start looking at whole team salary cap situations, and we have some measurements that we're going to kind of use to compare teams within divisions to each other and kind of throughout the league, so you can get an idea of the strategy that your team is using versus your division competitors, and then over the course of a few weeks, you can look at the league as a whole. But yeah, so here we go. We're going to just roll through the Danielle Hunter situation. It's pretty straightforward, but it's always interesting to talk about, and we did have a request for him a little while ago. So real quick, we have the edge market here, the top 10 edge contracts. You go from $27 million with Joey Bosa all the way down to Shaq Barrett, who just signed for $17 million, which is just, it's insane. He definitely took a huge discount to stay in Tampa Bay. I won't dwell on these numbers too much, but, we still have a couple of contracts from 2018 and 2016 back in there. And when you're looking at Von Miller, when he signed his contract in 2016, Khalil Mack was coming up in 2018. Even if he didn't get traded, he was likely to get an extension at that point. And so that's just something to remember as we go through this, because Khalil Mack was almost assuredly going to break $20 million, and he did it healthily. Again, when you trade 2 first-round picks for a player, generally you give them extra leverage. So if he had signed with the Raiders, he probably would have gotten a little bit less. But when a team like the Bears, they give up that much to bring you in, it's just, when you enter a negotiation with them, and we've talked about this before, you're basically saying, yeah, we want you real bad. We think you're really good, so we're going to throw the farm at you. And that bumped up the market for everybody. The following year, Frank Clark and DeMarcus Lawrence both broke $20 million themselves, and then we had a couple of guys the year after that get even higher. But and why I'm bringing all this up is because, as you can see, Danielle Hunter's not even on this list. despite being one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. Now, he was hurt for the majority of last year. I'm not even sure how much he played. I feel like he got hurt very early in the season, but he signed an extension in 2018. So, you would think back at that point, being such a good pass rusher, he would have still been in this list here at some point, but it's not the case, and I'll kind of tell you why. So just to have some pretty straightforward numbers here. Base salary over the next 3 years is all at $12.15 million. And basically what it breaks down to is a yearly salary of $12.75 million. And the reason you get to that is because you have the per game roster bonuses and the workout bonuses, which total an additional $600,000 between the two. If you include that as his annual earnings, that's what he's going to be getting for the next 3 years each. And that's very, very low. His current annual value of contract is $12.4 million, but it was slightly front-loaded. So, excuse me. His current annual value for his contract extension is $14.4 million per year. It was a 5-year extension. The first 2 years had a little bit more invested, so that allows his back-end numbers to be a little bit lower. He still has $12 million in his prorated bonus money left, so there's $5 million here in 2021, $5 million here in 2022, and $2 million here in 2023. And so again, that's money that's already been paid to him, although it does affect the cap in these coming years, but it doesn't count towards what his earnings per year will be going forward. 14.4 is well below market value for a top-end pass rusher. 12.75, even less so. So it's understandable that he's unhappy with what he's making right now. There are 2 issues with this. The first one is he was hurt for almost the entire year last year. That's not something that boosts your value. It also is not the kind of thing that encourages a team to give you an extension. The second is that he signed an extension and he has 3 years left on it. So he signed in 2018 when he still had 1 year left under his rookie contract. I believe he was a 3rd round pick, if I'm not mistaken. And his contract was very, very low. What you'll see sometimes is players who were drafted in the 3rd, 4th round, or even later. They are a little bit more eager to sign extensions than players who were drafted in the 1st or early 2nd round. And the reason for that is because the contracts are generally significantly lower. The bonus money is lower. And these guys in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, etc., they're not making that much more than undrafted free agents or veteran minimum players. So a big payday, or the first extension or the first free agent contract, is really the first time they're making, real NFL money. So that is what I believe happened back in 2018. If he had somebody who really had his attention, like his agent or, his advisors, and they really knew what was coming, they would have told him to hold off on signing an extension until the Khalil Mack extension was put through. Because of where the market was set with Von Miller back in 2016, 2 years later in 2018, there was a strong indication, pretty much everyone expected that, the next marker would be over 20 million, and it would be Khalil Mack, who would set that mark. And the fact that he didn't want to wait for that and that he wanted to get his extension done quickly, unfortunately hurt him a little bit in two ways. One is the amount per year, and second is the number of years. If you can help it, if you are a player with any leverage, you want to try and get 4 years if you can. It's a little bit harder for the second, third, fourth round players because they don't have that fifth year option. So a lot of times teams will say, well, we're negotiating with you now, you know, or maybe they won't say it, but in their mind, they have the fifth year option to work with a first round rookie, which means that, you know, they can offer a 4-year extension after the fourth year for those players. So if you're working with a second or third or beyond round player and you offer a 4-year extension, that player is going to get to free agency a year earlier than the first round player. So a lot of times teams will want the 5 years. But if you're an elite pass rusher, you want to try and hit that 4-year mark. And if you don't hit that 4-year mark, you want to get more per year. Basically, the team has to give you something. They either have to give you a shorter contract or a higher per year. And he didn't really get either. And the issue is with a 5-year extension and a year left in his previous contract, we are now 3 years later, and he still has 3 years left to go till he hits free agency. So there's really no reason for the team to want to offer him an extension right now. And to really make it worth his while, he would want a pretty hefty extension as well. Now, you don't really ever see 3-year extension. You don't really ever see extensions with 3 years left on the contract. An unusual example we talked about before was DeAndre Hopkins in Arizona, but they were able to look at it a little bit differently because they didn't have any prorated money in the contract because that was all stuck with the Texans when he came over in the trade. So the cost that they had invested into him or were going to invest into him in terms of salary cap was much lower than what his Houston signed contract was meant to be. So they said, okay, look, we'll give you a raise, add a couple of years on the end. We talked about that in the other video. There's really no reason that the Vikings would want to do this. So according to overthecap.com, which is probably fairly accurate, the Vikings have about $7 million in cap space, which is basically enough to sign their rookies. They have money next year, around $20 million to work with, but it's also going to depend on what the salary cap comes out to be at that point. But they could make it work. They could give him an extension. They could give him a raise. They would have to convert some money into a prorated bonus, into a signing bonus. But why would they want to do that, considering the fact that he is coming off an injury? I do suspect that if he didn't have that significant injury that basically took him out for the majority of the season, if he had a really good year like he's been having lately, I think that they probably would have said, here, we'll give you a raise. Not a huge one, but a little one. Because there's just, not a reason to give him a lot, but you do want to, take care of your own players. You don't want them to be upset if possible. And considering how far below the market value his contract currently sits, I could see them wanting to do that. But I think the injury just throws all of that out the window. And I just don't think that he has any leg to stand on. He has years left under contract. He was hurt. And on top of that, the ability to hold out for a player nowadays with the newly signed CBA, it's very difficult. I mean, you're giving up so much money so quickly that people are even questioning whether Deshaun Watson would do it. And the situation in Houston is so much worse off than anything like this. just because of the financial implications of it. So for Danielle Hunter to sit out during training camp, etc., it doesn't make any sense. So ultimately, comparatively to the edge market, he's way undervalued or underpaid. His contract, when he signed it as an extension in 2018, was a 5-year extension worth $14.4 million. It was even probably underpaid back then, and certainly now. Over the next 3 years, he is going to make an average of $12.75 million per year. My guess is nothing happens with it this year. And if he plays a healthy season and is successful, then it will probably be revisited in this coming offseason, in the 2022 offseason, even though he has 2 years left on his contract, just to make him happy. They might do an extension. They might give him a marginal pay raise just to keep him happy. It kind of depends on where the sides are, but I do not expect anything to happen this year. There's no reason for the Vikings to, again, like I said, you might consider something just to work with him, but that injury just kind of takes all of that off the table for me. I think. So that was Capstrap for this week. Like I said, I wanted to keep it shorter and sweeter. I'm going to try and do that with stuff in the future on the channel. I have a habit of repeating myself and going on and on. So I'm going to try and work on that a little bit. But guys, I really do appreciate all the feedback and the subscribers and the likes and everything. So if you like what you saw here, you can hit subscribe. You'll be getting contract stuff every week for the next few weeks based on specific players. Again, if you do have a player in mind, let me know. Let me know, because I'll more than likely do it. And if you want your team to be done, don't worry. I'm going to do all the teams after the draft. So, but if you have specific questions, let me know. You can hit me up on Twitter @PanAmFootball. And we will see you all next week.